this point, as we're talking about a little bit of history, I'd like to skip back in time, even a little bit farther, back to 1701. This is Antoine Cadillac, French explorer. He's the founder of Detroit. Back in 1701, Cadillac and his crew, they sail out from Montreal, Canada, and they're looking for the perfect spot to found the city of Detroit. Well, Cadillac and their crew, they're coming up the Detroit River looking for that perfect spot. Cadillac finds it, points it out. They pull the canoes ashore. As you see here, Cadillac plants his flag. Well, the perfect spot just happens to be where Hart Plaza is now occupied. Well, when Cadillac and his crew, they're coming down the river, there used to be ancient stone monuments and ancient mound sites that used to dot the landscape of the Detroit River. And in these mounds is what's even more impressive. But the mounds themselves, many felt these were made by the Native Americans, and surely some of these mounds probably were. But in Detroit in particular, when some of these natives were spoken to and interviewed, a lot of these natives claimed not to know who the mound builders were, but that some of them did recall old legends that their ancestors had actually ousted an ancient evil race, as they call them, an evil civilization, which had come here to dig for copper and build these mounds. So imagine the disbelief of local residents, archaeologists, laymen, and they started actually digging into these mounds and uncovering relics such as these. These are known as the Michigan relics. And they uncovered estimates range from anywhere to 3,000 to 10,000 of these incredible relics. And what I'd like to point out is the symbol up here on the top. This is known as the mystical Michigan symbol. And this symbol was incorporated at some point on every one of these relics. And there was an enormous cache of these found. A lot of them were clay relics, pipes, pottery, a lot of copper relics, copper axes, crowns, coins, even copper tablets. But the majority of them, and the most impressive I believe, were the slate relics that were discovered. And many of these slate relics had almost an Egyptian feel to them. But when archaeologists got a hold of these, and this is taking place in the late 1800s and early 1900s, they got a hold of these and they looked at this writing, these inscriptions, and they said, this is a scrambled language. We have nothing to compare this to. This has to be a forgery, especially considering what they call the cartoon-like religious art. So they dismissed them as forgeries. And considering there were 2, 3, possibly 4 men discovering a large amount of these, they pointed the finger at them and even proclaimed them the actual culprits. And these are the gentlemen. Father James Savage, Daniel Soper, there's another man not pictured up here by the name of Scotford. But what archaeologists believe these guys must have been doing is they say these guys must have been forging these relics in a back barn or shed somewhere, traveling the entire state of Michigan, including the Upper Peninsula, and this is a big area, going on private property, finding ancient burial mounds, and hiding these relics in these burial mounds, only to come back years later, bring witnesses, and uncover them. They felt these guys must have been doing this for some 30-odd years, and although they were under scrutiny from the very get-go, they were never charged with nothing. And that's kind of where the story ends, according to archaeologists. These relics now sit in a back room, collecting dust at the Michigan Historical Museum. At least a lot of them do. But there's another side to the story. A Supreme Court judge caught wind of these not too long ago, and he could not comprehend this scenario, how these several men could, 1, make all these tablets, just a sheer numbers issue, and 2, how they could have incorporated this incredible theology that was largely unknown at the time. So what he decided to do, and a good idea, was to have a handwriting analysis done. If these were all done by 3 or 4 men, they should only come back with 3 or 4 different handwriting styles. Well, he had a handwriting analysis done by Henriette Mertz, and she went on to write a book about this. And what she said is, after doing her analysis, that one peculiar thing stood out. Even though the letters may be a mixture, the mixture within itself appeared consistently uniform. Analysts such as would be acceptable in any recognizable court showed that the writing had not been forged. Each tablet had been written by a different hand, and no 2 tablets were characteristic stemming from one single hand. Well, this scenario points to a possible entire race coming to Michigan and depositing these tablets. So there's 2 sides of this story. 1, they were forged by 3 gentlemen, or 2, the history of Michigan and Detroit area in particular is not as we've been told. And I'm just skimming the surface of this story here. This is can really get into detail but I'm just skimming the surface of it today. Here's another picture of the Tower of Babel, the pale one. But if you're interested in this story, I have a whole chapter of it in my latest book, The Mystical Mitten, Michigan's Stargates, Temples, and Sacred Mounds of Transformation. And it's a very interesting story. Either one is the greatest hoax of all time that very few people know about, or two, the history of Michigan and Detroit in particular, not as we've been led to believe.